We are embroidering on top of a single crochet square for a coaster. That's single crochet in US terms. In UK terms, that would be double crochet. So I have got 12 stitches wide and 13 rows high. So here's my blank coaster to work with. And I used a single chain stitch at each edge to turn and get up to the right height to work the single crochet. And we're going to count that as a post when we're doing the embroidery on it. So we see we've got 13 rows, and you can kind of look and see where the right side and the wrong side of the rows kind of come together, so you can see the rows in pairs. They're sort of a channel if you get the light running across them. And so you can count your rows. We've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and then 13. And then if you count your stitches, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And then that turning chain on the edge gives us a 13th post to work around. So we're going to be using just a single strand of the same weight of yarn. You could probably go up one weight category. I'm not using a double strand, that's too thick for this. And I'm going to start one row up, working around the post of the central stitch. So we've got our first row here, here's our second row, and we're going to come over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're working around this stitch, and I'm doing a column of 11 stitches all the way up. I'm going to take about an arm's length worth of yarn so that it's not more than I can comfortably handle, but I won't end up with too many ends to weave in at the end. And you can work each stitch individually, or if you have a whole row or column, you can do the back diagonal all the way across and then come back down with the front diagonal, which is what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to work around the post and then come up for the next stitch in that vertical column of stitches. And just go all the way up and end before the last stitch. So that will be 11 stitches out of the 13 in this column will be embroidered, leaving the top and bottom stitch without any embroidery. And you want to keep the yarn snug enough that it stays where you want it to be and it's recognizable as an X shape without pulling so tight that you distort your fabric. This is one that would be really fun with a variegated yarn. Use a really bright variegated yarn without any dark colors in it and do it on a black or navy or dark purple background, or use a really dark yarn on a pale background. You could also do a set of coasters in different embroidery colors on the same background color. Okay, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 And now we're going to work back to do the diagonal that is in the front. It's on top of the other diagonal. And as long as your yarn is coming out of and going into the right spot and you're putting just enough slack into it, you're not over tightening it or leaving it too loose, then you can come back in afterwards and massage it so your X's are a little more regular. Looks like I've got a little puff. I have the blue right there. Find the chart for the embroidered X locations with the pattern on Ravelry. As you finish a section and you need to break your yarn, or as you run out of yarn you need to add more yarn, make sure you're always leaving at least 4 inches to weave in the end, especially since these are not crocheted stitches. This yarn is not worked into your fabric, and so it's not going to have that assistance to keep it where you left it. You really want enough tail to your yarn to get it secured. All right. And you are good to go. I think a nice blocking with a clothes iron will also help this one. If you do it in 100% cotton, you can very, very carefully steam it to heat block it. If you're doing it in acrylic, do not make contact with the fabric, and also make sure that you have pinned it out to be a square shape before you do it, because as soon as you apply heat to acrylic, you have melted it a little bit, you've permanently changed the fibers, and they're going to be where you've put them. They'll relax and flatten out some. If you do make contact, you'll melt them, so don't do that. If you use 100% wool, you can wet block, soak it, press the water out, roll it in a towel to get the excess water out, and then just pin it out to a perfect square. Happy crafting!